At 5:29 in the morning, on July 16, 1945, in an empty stretch of New Mexico desert, a small group of the smartest people who had ever lived flipped a switch. And a few of them were not completely certain it wouldn't set the sky on fire. Not the test site, not the state, the entire atmosphere of the planet. A wall of flame racing across the whole world with nowhere to stop. They pushed the button anyway. This is the story of the most important sunrise in human history and the terrifying question that was hiding inside it. Because the men who built the atomic bomb did the math on the end of the world, and then they bet on the answer. To understand how we got there, you have to go back into the secret. By 1945, the Manhattan Project was the largest, most expensive secret in the history of the United States. Tens of thousands of people, billions of dollars, entire hidden cities, all aimed at one thing: a weapon that ran on the energy locked inside the atom. At its center was a physicist named J. Robert Oppenheimer, and a device the scientists simply called the gadget, a sphere of plutonium wrapped in precisely shaped explosives, designed to crush its own core until it ignited. No one had ever done it before, so they chose a place to try, a patch of desert so harsh the Spanish had named it the Jornada del Muerto, the journey of the dead man. Oppenheimer gave the test its own name, Trinity. But there was a problem that had been quietly haunting the project for years, and it started with a simple, horrifying question. What if the explosion didn't stop? A nuclear blast doesn't just make a fireball, it makes heat, heat beyond anything that exists naturally on Earth, tens of millions of degrees. And back in 1942, a brilliant physicist named Edward Teller had raised a nightmare. The air around us is mostly nitrogen. What if that unimaginable heat could force the nitrogen in the atmosphere to fuse together, releasing more heat, fusing more nitrogen in a chain reaction that fed on the sky itself? If that happened, the bomb wouldn't just destroy a city, it would turn the planet's atmosphere into a furnace. Every living thing gone in a flash. It sounds like science fiction. The scientists treated it like a calculation. Another physicist, Hans Bethe, ran the numbers, and his conclusion was that it was, essentially, impossible. The atmosphere couldn't catch fire that way. The math didn't allow it. The fear was so important that it was eventually written up in a classified report, just to put it on the record. But here is the part that should stop you cold. Essentially impossible is not the same thing as impossible. Bethe was confident. He was not, with absolute certainty, 100% sure. Because no one had ever lit one of these before. The only way to truly know what an atomic bomb does to the sky was to set one off and watch. So the doubt never fully went away. It just got very, very small. And they decided that very, very small was a risk worth taking, with the entire planet as the stake. Real quick, if a story about people gambling with the whole atmosphere is your kind of thing, do me a favor and hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel more than you'd think. Okay, back to the desert. The night before the test, everything went wrong. A thunderstorm rolled in over the site, rain, lightning, the worst possible weather to detonate the most dangerous object ever made. They waited in the dark, soaked and exhausted, watching the sky. And to break the unbearable tension, one of the scientists did something that has become legend. Enrico Fermi, one of the greatest physicists of the century, started offering his colleagues a bet. The wager? Whether the test would ignite the atmosphere, and if it did, whether it would merely destroy the state of New Mexico or incinerate the entire Earth. Some people heard this as a dark joke, a way to laugh at fear. Some of the soldiers standing guard heard it differently. They heard actual nuclear scientists openly betting on the end of the world, and a few of them got scared enough that the test director was furious. But sit with what that bet really means. The man taking wagers on global annihilation was not a fool. He was a genius. And even a genius, on that morning, thought the odds were worth joking about out loud. The storm finally broke just before dawn. At 5:29 and 45 seconds, they fired the gadget. The first thing was the light, a flash brighter than the midday sun, lighting up the mountains as if it were noon in the middle of the night. People saw it from over 150 miles away. A blind woman, riding in a car far from the site, reportedly saw the flash. The heat reached the ground and fused the desert sand into a strange, glassy green mineral that didn't exist on Earth until that moment. Then came the roar, rolling across the desert seconds later, slamming into the distant observers like a fist. And then they all looked up. The sky was still there. Beta was right. The atmosphere did not ignite. The chain reaction the math had ruled out correctly. The Earth kept its air and its life and its future. But no one celebrated like they'd won. As the fireball climbed into the dawn, Oppenheimer later said a line from an ancient Hindu scripture drifted through his mind. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The director of the test, a man named Kenneth Bainbridge, put it in plainer words. He turned to Oppenheimer and said, "Now we are all sons of bitches." They had been right about the sky, and they knew in that instant exactly what they had unleashed instead. So here is what the whole strange morning is really about. It was never just about a bomb. It was about a button. A handful of human beings stood in a desert and made a decision with a sliver of doubt about whether it would end all life on Earth. They were almost certain it wouldn't. Almost. And they pressed it anyway, because the alternative, not knowing and letting someone else find out first, felt worse. The atmosphere didn't catch fire that morning, but something else did. From that sunrise on, the human race has lived every single day next to buttons exactly like that one. We built a power we are almost sure we can control. Almost. And we have been living on that word ever since. If a quiet, world-ending risk that we choose to live right on top of fascinates you, I have another one for you. Go watch my video on the 2 mega earthquakes that could hit California. The ground out there is keeping a secret wound tighter than it's been in 1,000 years. It's on screen now. I'll see you there.